Well, Newday, today you are in for a treat. If we have not met, my name is Annika, and I am the kids pastor here at Newday. And one of the reasons I am the kids pastor here at Newday is because I believe in the next generation. I believe that they are the future of our church, but I also believe that they are an important part of the church today. And here at Newday, we desire to be the kind of church where the next generation feels like they are at home, where they can feel seen, where they can feel like they are making a meaningful difference. We want to be the type of spiritual community that the next generation will look for wherever they might go. This makes us need to have a moment to just take time and space to listen and to understand, to encourage them and to empathize with them. And all of those things, encouraging, empathizing, and understanding someone, begins with listening. And so I want you to take a moment and think about the teenagers who are in your life today. Do you have them in your mind? Maybe you live in the same neighborhood as some teenagers, or you have a teenager who babysits for you. Maybe you get coffee from a teenager every single week or here on Saturday mornings, or you serve with a teenager on your ministry team here at Newday. If nothing else, you probably pass by a few teenagers in our church lobby here on Saturday mornings. The fact is that teenagers are in our everyday life, but the question is, how well do we actually know them? And so today we are going to take the time and the space to listen, to understand so that we can empathize with them and encourage them in every opportunity we possibly have. This is how Newday will become the type of spiritual community where the next generation can just feel at home wherever they might go. And so without further delay, I want to invite up all of the Mile High kiddos, and I just invite you guys to imagine that we are at the dinner table together, pulling up a chair and leaning into this conversation where we will get to view the eyes of the world through these kiddos who are following Jesus. And so be encouraged, be hopeful that as we together right now, as learners and as listeners, get to learn from these students. Come on up, you guys.
As we're getting set up, we want to thank Newday for taking the time to listen and to have this conversation. And so we have 6 students here from Mile High Academy. We're going to have kind of a conversation with some questions that I'll ask them, and we'll kind of moderate a discussion here about what it's like to be the next gen. And as we get started, I'll just ask, we'll start here to my left. I'll ask each of the students to introduce themselves and let you know what year they are at Mile High.
Yeah, so my name is Gwen Loney, and I am a junior at Mile High.
My name is Andrew Kramer, and I'm also a junior at Mile High.
My name is Eden Jacklich, and I'm a freshman at Mile High.
My name is Jonas Jacklich, and I am a junior.
My name is Daniela Valencia, and I am also a junior.
My name is Lindsay Sajak, and I am a freshman at Mile High.
Very good. So we'll just start off with some questions this morning. So what are the best parts of being a teenager?
Yeah, I'll start. So yeah, I heard a laugh. There's a lot of like the best parts of being a teenager isn't really talked about. It's more like, oh, what's this? Their lives are so hard, right? But I kind of think it's great being a teenager. I mean, we have tons of opportunities, like expanded options. We literally unlimited resources. Like, you know, if you're having trouble studying for a history test or a Bible quiz, you got all the resources you need. It's also kind of like a training wheels period. So we're allowed to go out on our own. We can learn, but we also have people to fall back on if we need. We're kind of like protected while learning how the world works before we enter our actual adult phase. We're allowed to try a lot of things and not like commit yet, kind of figure out what we want to do. And I think that's some of the best parts.
Cool.
Like Gwen said, I really think all the resources that are open to us are new for some people, and I think it's really good that us as a generation get to experience these because of a lot of these are still developing or we are the first people to use them, and I think that's really cool. And some of them, like, you do need to be careful with, but you're still open to everything. You can do more activities outside of school or even more in school, and just, like, you can learn anything, and we literally all have access to it, which I think is really cool.
Cool. Anyone else want to take a shot? What's the best part of being a teenager today?
I love the community of being a teenager. The fact that we can all just gather in one place 5 days a week and just be with each other is really awesome to me.
Now, just to clarify, did you just say that being at school was really awesome?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that was a clarification in case anybody had a question about your answer. Thank you, thank you. So what are some of the challenging parts of being a teenager that you wish adults knew?
I think that a challenging part for me is managing my time well. Between school, homework, sports, and just living, I find it hard to find time to get all of that done and to do it well. And so I think that a lot of my adults in my life do understand that I have limited time, and I really appreciate that, but then they're also there for me if I ever need help with managing my time or driving me somewhere or just being there in general to support me.
Yeah, and like Lindsay said, yeah, it's really hard to manage your time, which also comes with trying to meet expectations, not only from the adults around you, but maybe if you have an older sibling, you look up to them so much and you want to be like them, and you can't always do that.
What's challenging that you wish adults knew today? One of the great things about being in the classroom is you get used to awkward silence. It's a great thing. Do you have something else, Lindsay? Sorry, I saw the microphone going
Yeah,
up.
I totally agree with Daniela. I think that a lot of adults try their best with this, but really just not comparing you to anyone else. I think it's great to set goals and standards for your children, but not to compare them to another child or their cousin or their sister or whoever else.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to set benchmarks for your children. Don't push them to be something they're not. Just encourage them to do their best, and that's enough.
I also think, like Gwen said earlier, about one of the best parts is that, like, we have the opportunities and you can, like, try them out but still have something to fall back on. Just, like, making sure they know that, like, they have you to fall back on is really nice.
That support that you have? Oh, very good. Anyone else? Challenging parts of being a teenager. No challenges, Kramer? All right, fair enough. Hey, fair enough. You manage, all right, all right. So next one. What advice do you have for parents who are about to have a teenager?
Okay. The first thing I have is please let them date when you're in your household. I'm not.
Wait, hold on. What'd you say? Please let them.
Please
what?
let them date when they're in your household.
All right.
I know I'm getting a lot of laughs, and that's understandable because I know parents of some kids in my life that are like, no dating, don't do it. But I think it's a very important part of growing up because we're obviously going to like want relationships like that. And it's very important for us to learn how to do those appropriately and successfully. And you, as the parent in our life, are in the perfect position to teach us how to do that. Teach us about boundaries, teach us how to treat the other person, teach us how to conduct ourselves appropriately and keep a God-fearing relationship with that person. It's very important. And then the second thing that I have is kind of like something that I want every single parent here to be aware of, whether you have a teen or not. Time is now a currency for you. At the age of 18, at the age of 18, someone has spent 90 to 95% of the time that they ever will with their parents. And I feel like That's a very difficult thing to realize, but I also think it's very important because it can kind of get you thinking, like, make the most of the time you have left. Because by the time your kid's out of the house, living on their own, that's almost all the time you're going to have with them. Make the most of the time you have left.
Very good.
So, I mean, we kind of talked about this at the last question, but like setting realistic expectations and not like comparing them to other people. You always expect the best from your child. Like that's something you're always going to do. But if you push too hard, they're just not going to want to do anything. And I feel like it. I mean, obviously, also helps if that's your teenager's goal as well. Like your goal for your teenager is their goal for themselves. But I think what would help is like communication. I mean, that's everybody's like, oh, communication is the best part of your relationship. Yes, it is. Take that seriously. But communication can help in that goal setting, comparison type things as well. And then, I mean, something kind of personal is that I feel like a couple of people on the stage as well. When people learn how old we are, or like what grade we're in, the first question out of their mouth is, oh, what college are you going to go to? What are you going to do with the rest of your life? I don't know. Like, I'm 16, almost 17, and I have no idea what I feel like that's a kind of a unrealistic expectation within itself. Like, we have no idea what we want to do with our lives, and that's okay. And I mean, I appreciate the people who, want to ask and want to care and, them showing some interest, but that's definitely one thing that I'd be like, it's okay if they don't know what they want to do with the rest of their life.
Just out of curiosity, in regards to this question, how many of you, when you looked at the question, what advice do you have for your parents, felt a little awkward about it, like giving your parents advice?
For sure.
For sure. All right. So anyone else, what advice do you have? And it doesn't necessarily have to be, for your parents or specific to your family, but just in general from things that you've observed.
Well, along with what Gwen said about communication, there's also this need for trust between the parents and the teenager. You can't expect your teenager to trust you if you don't trust them. It's a two-way street. So don't be afraid of having to trust your teenager. Just know that you can have conversations with your teenager and just trust them that they're not going to make bad decisions all the time.
Yeah, and for parents sitting out there and listening, I think it's important too, as we listen to students give us advice, it's important not to be thinking about our rebuttal of how we'll respond to this after the service. Anyone else? What advice do you have? Go ahead, Jonas.
I'll say one quick thing. Now this, from the question, you kind of see, oh, a teenager's this scary thing. It's a whole different ballgame. However, a teenager's a person. So just a person who is of a certain age. That's all it is. It's just your kid is still a person. They're not an alien. That's kind of where I go with that. So it shouldn't be as scary as it is.
Yeah. Thank you, John. I think we should maybe have a quote. They are not an alien. That's good. That's good advice.
I think what Daniela said about like having trust and stuff, we're also told a lot to act like adults or act your age, but then we're not treated our age. And I say respect is a two-way street, and that's like an important part of having trust and conversations as well. So.
Very good. Wendy, go ahead.
I totally agree with what Daniela said, is that yes, trust us, but also I have made more mistakes than I can probably count on my fingers and toes, so just love us. I mean, trust me is that when you say they're disappointed, we're disappointed too, and we just need that love because we love you guys, and we're not all hardcore goth and moody teenagers.
Praise the Lord. I don't want to cut anybody off. This seems to be like a great question. Everybody's getting it out, so I don't know if you guys have anybody else? We good? All right, let's move on to the next one. So we have, this question was about teenagers, but some people have students or children who are are going to become middle schoolers. So what advice do you have for middle schoolers who are about to be in high school?
Well, you know, high school can be scary, especially if you're looking more at Hollywood movie type of high school. It's not like High School Musical, guys. I'm sorry.
What?
I know. But don't push yourself so hard. It's so easy to try to always want to be perfect in everything you do, but it's not going to happen because there is no such thing as perfection. You can't be perfect, just do your best and be okay with it.
So my second point to that is, like she said, it's not as scary as it should be. You don't walk
As it
into
should
high school
be?
as it sorry
As it could be, maybe?
as it could be and as it is shown.
I don't know. We need to make it more scary at Mile High. I don't know. It's just,
I'm
check.
okay.
All right.
I think we're good.
Just messing with you.
So I will say, in your stereotypical high school, there's a clique for nerds, there's a clique for jocks, and then there's a clique for whatever else. Sure? It's not that way, but it is that way. There are cliques, but there's a clique for literally everyone. And that's, I think, what middle schoolers struggle to believe, that you can fit in somewhere, and then it's not as scary as it is shown to be.
So if they might be nervous, just to sum up, they might be nervous about high school. What you're saying is there's a place for everybody. You'll find that group.
Right. Socially, it'll work.
Cool.
I also think going off of that, like, you shouldn't be afraid to try things. Like, if you're really into sports, then you should go do sports. Just because it's high school versus middle school doesn't mean you should stop doing what you really like. And you'll end up making some of your best friends on, like, sports teams or after school, like, just hanging out. It's always super fun.
I want to go back to what Daniela said about like not pushing yourself to be perfect or like, you know, again, expectations. I'm going to say two very stereotypical things and people are going to sigh, but that's okay. High school is where you're going to make those memories. So yeah, don't push yourself to the point where you remember absolutely nothing because this is what you're going to look back on. Like, I'm already doing it and I'm just a junior. Like, I'm like, wow, sophomore year was so much fun, woo. And then I realized that we're in February of junior year. But within that, grades are also important, and people are like, yeah, whatever, but they are. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say.
Cool. Anybody else have any advice for middle schoolers that are going to be high schoolers?
I think what we've said so far is, you know, like your personal, how you should react to certain things and kind of how you should go into it. And I think my biggest help for if something is going wrong, ask questions. It is one of the best things to do. If you're in a class, you don't know what to do, ask questions. If you don't have any friends, ask someone a random question. They might be your friend. Join a group. If you see that one kid playing chess in the corner, ask a question. Maybe you can play chess with him. Asking questions is the simplest way to solve some of the basic problems.
Very good. Any other takers? All right. So here's the next one. What is one thing you wish adults would share with you?
Okay, I'll start. I have a couple for this one. So how my life usually goes, the random things I ask my parents, adults, whatever, I was like, why do playgrounds have curly slides instead of straight slides? Because straight slides, you can go down and they're so much faster. You can jump off the end, and curly slides, you're just sitting there, you're going in a little circle, and you're like, why? Why am I here? I'm just building static. That's all I'm doing. On a straight slide, it's actually fun. You get to go fast. Now, I got some of you to laugh. That means you're like kind of in the conversation. And then from there I go, okay, engineering, architecture, math, psychology. Oh, let's have a deeper conversation. This simple thing went deeper and deeper. Basically, adults need to be able to have these conversations that start nowhere and go somewhere that the kid is like, whoa, that's actually a good conversation. And how did it start? Huh, straight slides, curly slides. But it goes somewhere. So I think adults need to be able to take something and bring it somewhere with kind of like trying to understand the kids, like, not ulterior motives, but the motives behind their question, and then take it somewhere to it actually means something to their life.
I would say one thing that I would love for not just my parents when they've done it to me, but just like any parent in general, share your failures with us. Because I know so many parents in the lives of kids that I know, and they feel like they have to put up like this perfect image. I have to do everything I can to be the perfect parent, do this, do that, make this amount of money. And it's like, that's not what connects you to us. It's good to like be a strong parental figure in your child's life, but it's not relatable if you're perfect, because no one's perfect. If you put up that front, it makes it harder to connect with us. Tell us the times you failed. When we failed and we come to you, tell us about the time you did the same thing. It makes us respect you so much more, and it makes you so much more relatable to us, and it connects us more.
So, like Andrew said about putting up a front, a wall, another thing that goes with that beyond sharing your failures is tell us your expectations. That's the part of an open relationship where we're like, do you want me to address you as Mr., Mrs., your last name, your first name? That's a surface level example, but what do you want from me? Do you want me to build a relationship with you? Do you want me to be someone who is willing to like work with you, work for you, or just do what you want me to do? So expectations is a good way to break down this barrier you have between someone.
So Jonas, just to clarify, that's for adults in general, not just parents. You're saying everybody, like
Correct. Adults,
Mr. Carpenter, share your expectations.
right.
Got
Adults, teachers, parents, whatever other categories there are.
it. Sure. Someone else. What's one thing you wish adults would share with you? All right. Was there something there? No? All right. We'll move to the next question here. What's one question you or your friends have about faith or Christianity? Now, before they answer, we're not going to answer the questions here, but this is just so you guys can hear what are some of the questions that they have that are on their minds.
I feel like a lot of people struggle with, and this has come like up a lot. People do struggle with how to find like a personal relationship with God, and you can have those moments where you're like, oh, I finally found it, like he is my friend, or he is like a father figure to me. But I think also like holding those relationships, like making them last longer, making them last to adulthood and stuff like that, I think that is like a really good thing that some people miss out on or don't know how to find. And I think it's really cool when like your friends are with you and they're like, oh yeah, I do a devotional every day and that's really helped me. And I think that's really cool to like share with people and stuff like that. And I also think that finding a space to do that in is really important. So like I said, hanging out with your friends or a mentor or even with your parents is always really fun to do stuff like that. And I think that is also a struggle. People don't know how to step out a little out of their comfort zone to maybe share an experience they had with God with someone else, or to be like, how do I find this?
I'm going to say, at a surface level, how do you build time around the Bible rather than put the Bible into your schedule? Because if you have this schedule, school, break, sports, free time, bed. If you have that schedule, where's the Bible going to fit in? Before school, or after sports? Or you could say, maybe I want to do my Bible study around 11 o'clock. So you put it between these two classes, you just read the Bible for 5 minutes and then go to your next class. So I would say, how do you put the Bible into, or how do you build your schedule around the Bible rather than building the Bible around your schedule?
Interesting. Good.
One question that I always have is, how do you make a meaningful prayer? Like a prayer that matters, a prayer that does something. Like a conversation with God. Like he's your best friend. You could sit there for hours talking to him, telling him everything, asking him for stuff, that kind of stuff.
I completely agree with that. I feel like sometimes my friends will pray in our Bible class or our math class and they'll be like, wow, that was such an amazing prayer. But I really do just love talking to God like he's my best friend. And I know that some of you guys in the audience know how I talk to you, and that's quite literally how I talk to God. So one of the questions that a lot of people have and that I have is a lot of questions about comparing. Like comparing yourself to someone else who had a better prayer than you, or someone who seems so much deeper in their relationship. And that makes me sad because we're all different, and the comparison is a very real and big thing in our generation.
I think that is also really true, and that does happen a lot, especially when there's that one kid who always volunteers to pray, and they make prayers super long, and sometimes they don't need to be. I know a couple of people who are thank you for this food, please help us have a good day, amen. And sometimes that works. And I think that also does come with having a more personal relationship with God.
I have to be careful because Mr. Carpenter is my Bible teacher, but I always wondered why Daniel and Revelation were that important. Everybody was like, oh, Daniel and Revelation are the most important books of the Bible, and I was like, why? It's just a whole bunch of dragons and beasts and stuff. But now, Mr. Carpenter is teaching us about it, and I'm actually finally begin to understand why. So,
Good. Little by little. Go ahead.
Okay. I would say, I'm going back to the topic of failure. I'm talking about failure a lot today. But we always hear these stories about people in the Bible like David, Solomon, Samson, and we always hear, God is good, God is good. And we kind of forget the failure that these people experienced in their life. And I feel like that's something that I at least wish we would focus on more. Because God is good, but we also need to learn from the failures of the people in his book. Why did this person learn from this? Why did this person not learn from this and go in a downward spiral? I think that's very important.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask a follow-up here. I'm going to bet that a lot of people, maybe sitting here, have similar questions that you guys have just shared that they may not know the answer to. So what would your response be that you say, hey, I have this question, to an adult or a parent or someone who's like, hey, I have this question too. What would you like to come out of that if you both have this question?
I've been in one of those experiences, and what I found really helpful is I like the statistics, and just if we both dive into research, whether that's in the Bible or literally Google, and we find some kind of answer or at least something that gives us closure, I love that so much. So just doing it with me instead of lecturing me or telling me, oh, Lindsay, you know this, we went over this,
Yeah.
Yeah, when the two people have a common question, it's a really good bonding experience. You can both just study the Bible together. Going back to what I said earlier about prayers, if you want to find the most amazing prayers of the Bible, you could both read about Hannah's prayer, how she had Samuel. You could read about Daniel in the lion's den, stuff like that.
And I think, it was mentioned earlier, that you can start talking about nothing and end up something. I think that also relates to this, because you could be laughing and joking about someone in the Bible or a mistake that you've made or something like that, but it could lead to a really meaningful experience for someone, and it could relate to the Bible And I think, like I said earlier, having that open space with someone you really like is really helpful to like develop a relationship.
So I'm just going to sum up here just from your other questions and then what we just heard here. So basically what you're saying is, hey, if there's a common question, you're looking for someone to sit down and not be like, ignore it, but someone to sit down and dig with you and to be honest that they have the question as well and to search together. Is that fair?
That would be ideal.
Okay.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Let's move on to the next one. Knowing what you know today, what advice would you give your first grade self and your sixth grade self?
Okay, I guess I'll start out with this. First grade. Okay. So I would say it's not going to be easy because second grade was when I first went into actual school. I was homeschooled before, and it sucked.
Very theological
not
term.
just because it's school and I love the doggone school, like, oh, it's so bad, but sorry.
Yeah.
But no, I got bullied a lot, and it was bad. And it's so bad to the point where like my brain has blocked most of it out, like selective memory and stuff. I would just say keep fighting, kid. And to my sixth grade self, use every experience that you've had, bad and good, because I have learned so much from the stuff that I went through, and I have learned so much from the good times that I've had. And I genuinely believe, and I have seen, that the bad things especially, God has let me go through all of it, but there's not a single thing that I have went through that he hasn't used through me to help someone else that's gone through the same thing.
Yeah, I was also homeschooled from kindergarten through 4th grade. So for my earlier years, especially like in 1st grade, I'm an extrovert. So I loved doing stuff. So whether that was like going to the park with some friends or going to the homeschool support program, that was definitely the highlight of my week. So I would just say, take advantage of that, have fun. Some of the kids there weren't always the nicest. Just don't hold grudges. They're your friends. There's only 5 people in your class, like, be friends with them. And then for 6th grade, so I had 5th grade in school, and I loved that. And then 6th grade was when COVID hit, which was definitely hard, and I wouldn't wish that upon anyone who just made a transition from elementary school into middle school. But I would say just prioritize being happy and finding the good things in life, because I feel like so often I would just go home and be like, I'm so angry at my friends. We got into drama today. Or I cannot believe that that teacher said that to me. Whereas I could be saying, I had a lot of fun in PE class. Or me and my friends got to hang out, which was rare because COVID. Or just looking at old pictures and being like, that was such a good time. I'd say focus on the positive so that you get yourself through the hard time, because good times will come again.
Anyone else? What advice do you have for your first and 6th grade self?
In 6th grade, I told my parents everything. I told them if I had a good lunch that day, I would be like, that was the highlight of my day. It was amazing. And I would say to to keep doing that, because in 6th grade, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to tell my parents that. But then I usually would end up telling them that. And I think that was really good. And I'm kind of glad I've still kept doing that. So I still kind of do that. And I'm really glad that my 6th grade self still kept doing that.
Did your mom make your lunch?
No.
Oh, okay. Just curious. Just curious. Anyone else? 1st or 6th grade self?
I think for me it was more of a, I was not an amazing student in 6th grade. I was new to the whole school system. I was homeschooled till 3rd grade. I had 4th, 5th for practice, and then 6th grade. It was kind of weird going into middle school. very strange experience. I think for me, my main advice would be 7th grade is going to be worse than 6th grade. But every year after that was better.
Praise the Lord.
I cannot agree more with that statement. Just get through 6th grade and then your life will be better.
6th grade is a tough year. You know, you go from elementary to middle school and change classes and everything. So, very good. Anyone else?
Well, I would tell my 1st grade self that not everyone is worth trusting. But the people who you can trust are going to be some of the most important people in your life. And you want to hold on to those people. And for my 6th grade self, like Jonas said, just brace yourself for 7th grade.
I'm noticing a theme. Very good. We'll move on to our last question this morning. How has your experience at Mile High Academy influenced your life?
I'll start. I'll go down. Well,
Sure.
So I never expected to be at a day school. Always wanted to go to a boarding school. And so when I toured Mile High, we were out here for a temporary 6-month thing for my dad's work, and so we really didn't expect to be here temporarily either, or permanently either. And when I toured Mile High, it was really unlike any other school. Like, the people actually came up and talked to you, and like you got to talk to some of your teachers, and you met, you know, the administration, and they took you on a tour, and then you got to shadow somebody for the rest of the day. It was unlike anything I had ever seen, and there was a sense of community. And now, 3 years later, that has not changed. It is literally a family. And Lindsay said something about, like, the best part about being a teenager is having that community. It really is. If there was not, like, there would be no point if there was not a community. And I think that's how MHA has influenced my life. There's been a community and a family there. So yeah.
I would say it's made me realize how much I need people. Because like I said before, 1st grade and 6th grade me did not like people. And for good reason. But I'd say it was around like 8th grade, freshman year, when I finally stopped hating like the idea of people in my life and like doing everything solo. And I was like, maybe it's time to give this people thing a try. And I did, and I can confidently say that it's the best choice I've ever made in my life. Like, I can say I'm close with every single person on stage with me. I love these guys to death, and it's very important.
I would go back to community, because I think at Mile High, that is one of the bases, like, we start everything with, and I think it's like, you also focus on the good at Mile High, and there's a lot of good. And like, if someone makes a joke, like, everybody will laugh, and I think that's because everybody knows like that person, and that person is super funny, or that person laughs a lot, or that person is like really good at math or really good at drawing, and you just know everybody, even if they're in a different class. Like, I think it really doesn't matter what class you're in or what grade you're in, everybody does get along.
I would say for me, it's the personal side of socializing. In 4th and 5th grade, I was like the socially awkward introvert who didn't know how to talk to anyone. I had my one friend. We were both the nerds of the class, and we were fine with it. And then 6th grade, it was different because it's a whole different environment. I still had my one friend, and we were still good at being nerds. 7th grade, one friend. Actually, I think I made a couple more in 7th grade. And then in 8th grade, I had one friend. And then in high school, it changed drastically. Like, now I have a large circle of friends that I can get along with. I can just walk up to someone and they'll sit there and hang out with me. So it kind of forced me to pop my own bubble. And in doing so, I changed from the socially awkward, introverted nerd in the corner to someone who now can get along with anyone in the high school. I think that's my main takeaway.
You know, last year was my first year at Mile High, and I didn't expect to find people that I'd be so close to, especially since at my last school, I had maybe 2 good friends. And then I got to Mile High, and that completely changed. I have an amazing group of friends, and I wouldn't change them for the world. Plus, an amazing group of teachers like Mr. Carpenter. I saw Mr. Toll and Mrs. Berg. And Castillo.
Wow, Mile High has definitely influenced my life. I came from a public charter school, so there was definitely a lot more kids there than there are at Mile High, but I definitely like experiencing both, because like I said, I was homeschooled, then I got to go to the public charter, now I'm at a private school, which I'm so blessed to be at. But yeah, I would totally agree with everyone else saying that there is such a tight-knit community, and going in, I was absolutely terrified of that, because a lot of the kids in my class that I was going to be going to school with had known each other ever since they were in kindergarten. And I was like, now it's freshman year, like 8 years later, and I'm gonna be the new girl, and it's gonna be hard. And the first day, everyone was nice, and I was expecting to like immediately connect with everyone, and they be my ride or die, my best friend, which is unrealistic, but now that time has gone on, it has gotten so much better. And at Mile High, I've tried new things like sports, and I've fallen in love with basketball. And I would just say that that totally influenced my life. Basketball, new friends, a tighter community. Yeah, all the benefits of Mile High has influenced me.
Great. Well, thank you guys. That was our last question. Did you have something? Oh, sorry, you're looking at me like it was coming. You know, they say the number one, you guys can go ahead and start going down. You know, they say the number one fear in life, even greater than death, is public speaking. And so, you know, it takes a lot of courage for these students to take the time to come up here and to, you know, be vulnerable with their community, with their parents who are here, and with those who are around them. And so I just want to say thank you for listening to these students. And, you know, as an educator, life is about learning. And I think there's 2 important points that I've learned in working with young people and in my career. And it's this: number 1, significant learning doesn't happen unless there's a significant relationship. And so the relationships that we bond at school and at home and at church are incredibly important to the development of a learner. And number 2, when we look at unique individuals, the question is not, are you smart, but how are you smart? And as a community, how can we develop that in our young people as we listen to them each and every day? So thank you for your time and for having us here today.